this was the guys on Overdrive, TSN afternoon radio. Radio's still on the air or something, apparently.
Radio. I remember that. What is that?
And they were talking about, the Leafs. Should they be buying? What teams are buying, selling? And they were just getting into who might be available. And as you might expect, Pierre LeBrun brings it back around to the Calgary Flames.
The team that I think is in jeopardy of making a mistake here if they're not real with themselves is the Calgary Flames.
Oh,
they've got to be real. They're not making the playoffs. And I know there's always pressure from ownership there to stay competitive and not give up on years. No man's land is the killer in this league, to your point, old dog. And they've got to be real, and they got to start listening on some of their veterans. They have an opportunity. There's not a lot of sellers. They have an opportunity to cash in with some of their veteran players.
No man's land. That's a new one. I like it.
And I would think that Pierre's dialed in. I have no clue. I've never spoke with him, but it feels like this is what he does.
He is an insider.
To me, that sounds like he's had feedback from some other people in the game that maybe they ain't listening down at Saddle Dome Rise Way.
Or if they're weighing options.
Makes me freaked out. What do you mean? That's no. You're putting.
You know what that is?
It spun it into the opposite of what I'm trying to say.
Continue. Go ahead.
I'm saying it sure sounds, I'm reading tea leaves, that Pierre LeBrun is hearing from other GMs that the Flames aren't really interested and they're not really listening on their veteran guys.
That's my takeaway.
That's your fear.
The team that's what
it's
he
not
said.
The fear. That's what he's saying.
If you listen to what he said.
I did hear what he said, yeah.
But you're not picking up what he
said. The team that could really screw this up if they don't.
They better wake up.
Yeah.
Is the Calgary Flames meaning come around to a different way of thinking, figure shit out fast.
Right. I'm with you. I'm not arguing
because you're not making the playoffs. No man's land, which is where you've been living.
Yeah.
Which is why Blake Coleman. This could hurt if he's. I still don't think there was any real thought of. Well, we can't trade Blake Coleman. He's got a year left in his contract.
But that's the vibe I'm picking up from Pierre. Is that the people phoning the Flames on these guys are getting the response of.
We're not sure yet.
No, we're not. Why are you making this excuse for these?
I'm not making any excuse for these
dumbass.
Guys. We've been talking for 3 years about rebuilding and tearing it down. They could have got an absolute haul for Rasmus.
So when's the fucking light go off down there?
Don't know. I'm not in there. I don't know what the conversations are.
Then it sounds like you don't want to talk about it.
No, we've had this conversation 1,000 times.
So it's not a conversation.
Like, I am afraid of what you guys are talking about, but we don't know what they are and aren't going to do until we get
shutting the conversation down.
No,
which is fine because we talked about it.
Let's do the confidence poll around the room. Are you confident they're going to trade Rasmus? Yes or no?
I said yesterday they're going to drive the car has been driven into the ditch and the cop has just taken away the keys.
Well, it's like I said, I feel like losing the more losses it takes the keys away.
Yeah, and
they're going to have.
That's just why I'm less concerned about it. But like the real fear was a week ago they were a point out. That's scary because then those guys can talk themselves into winning culture, rebiggle bullshit terminology. They're bad. I believe they're bad. I have confidence they're going to be so bad that it's going to be in their face that they can't ignore.
The problem here is, and again, we know they're getting calls on Blake Coleman.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting any traction because the Flames are not interested in making a trade for Blake. That's what drives me crazy.
So
what did they say?
If Pierre LeBrun says there's a lot of chatter and a lot of interest and there's a lot going, I don't know how you'd word it, on some of the Flames.
Keep your eyes on Calgary because there's a lot of calls and the Flames are.
That's not what he's saying. He's saying the opposite. He's saying there's no traction because the Flames ain't responding.
Yeah, he's saying, hello, fellas, don't screw this up.
The door's closed.
Look in the mirror, realize, acknowledge what you are.
But I don't know why I have to. It probably doesn't matter, and we're probably ending up at the same spot. But to me, you're taking it differently than what I am. And
we got Dregs in 3 minutes. Like we're trying to he's going to know what the appetite is. I have confidence they will move 2 of the 3 guys at a minimum. And Anderson, Coleman, and Kadri. But I have great fears that they will only do 1, and 0 would be a Chernobyl level disaster. So that's where I'm at. And it is a huge problem if the Calgary Flames don't sell Blake Coleman. But when they were a point out a week ago, they probably think they can hold him.
Is it not a huge problem that they're not even talking to teams that this might be a reality and they should be approaching it differently? It's not a problem for you?
They aren't talking about Blake.
That's what it sounds like Pierre is saying.
It does sound like he's indicating that might be the case. I mean, Dregs will have intel too. I'm sure we continue to hear they get lots of calls.
Pierre LeBrun.
No, I think Pierre's great.
Credit.
It's just that if we get really focused on terminology, sometimes we miss the point that's trying to be made. Like, they need to sell is what Pierre is saying, and they still have until March 6th to do that. You don't have to trade Blake Coleman this week.
I don't hear it. We're getting different things from the same clip, which it's fine. It was a 40-second clip. It just sounded to me like it was like, I don't know what's going on in Calgary. They've got some players here
that they could.
They're not making the playoffs. A team that needs to wake up right now.
Yeah.
Which again just leads me to believe maybe he's talked to some people. Like, yeah, we talked to, like, it just doesn't sound like there's any appetite to make trades in Calgary.
And if you'd called a week ago and they're point out of the playoffs, I get that. If you're calling in February and they're way out, that's going to be a huge problem. Because again, like, it's not like the deadline's next Tuesday and it's like they're going to screw this up.
Though,
right?
if this is,
they've got time to sell.
All right, then don't talk about it.
I'm happy to talk about it. It's just, it's really tough to know what's going on behind the scenes. We can only sort of parse through little details we get, right?
The one reason that I look at it today specifically is Coleman got hurt last night, potentially. And even Rasmus Anderson was kind of hobbling around. He's taking shots off the hand, off the foot, all of this.
Took one in the gut the other night, right?
It makes it tough when they're on the fence. We're taking the wait and see with guys who are playing
the most minutes on your team.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
It is. You wish they could be adults and treat the fan base like adults and acknowledge what they are. That whole Don Maloney thing seems so, it was just one bad interview. But it really was one of the worst things that's happened to this organization in the last 6 months, because it allowed fans to look at the organization and say, do these idiots know what the hell's going on? It completely deteriorated the faith in the organization. Because when you hear Connie talk, it's like prospects, upcoming draft picks, we're building the system, younger players, turning over the roster, and everyone's on side with that. Everyone in this city is like, this team isn't good enough, even if they did have a horseshoe up their ass and they snuck in. Everyone knows they need to rebuild. And that one interview screwed up everyone's confidence in this front office.
Well, they could have just listened to us prior to the call.
We just don't have a conversation.
But so that's what the fans perceive. It's not about, I'm kind of done talking about the interview because it was whatever. I still don't think that takes away from the bigger issue, which is I don't think the owner wants to make these trades.
I don't think those guys that
I
are
don't
running
think they're
things down
interested.
at Saddle Dome Rise Way are on the same page. I think there's too many cooks.
Could be. Yeah, like we don't know.
You're just being weird today about this. I don't get it.
That's a fear. I do fear that. I fear that Connie wants to take this thing a certain direction and he won't be able to do it. But geez, like, how in the world could we know what those conversations are like? Well, that's why we get Dreger on the show every week, right?
Well, that's also why we're on the show, is to discuss these things.
It is a little odd.
I'm sorry.
It's the contrarian in you.
Yeah, it's like you do
have to go take the other side, which is great for the show, but it's kind of anti-Pinder of you. Whereas before it was it's wait till the deadline. Don't wait till the deadline. If you like, it changes.
If they don't sell guys at the deadline, it'll be hellfire.
So you're all calm and cool, and
I think they're going to trade a bunch of guys.
Boring. So
no, it's not boring. It's
you're boring because you don't have
maybe
wait and see.
Yeah. I mean,
we don't know what's going
what's
on.
Fucking boring is this hockey team. I've watched for most of this season, most of the minutes, and there's no skill. They're not good enough.
The Rocket wouldn't be happy with you either. Now the Rocket's on your ass too.
No, we're good.
Both of you are. Luckily, we got the big boy in the middle.
Yeah,
does he know the Rocket?
We had some decorated journalists. We played the clip from Overdrive with you and Pierre and the O-Dog talking about. Of course, weird started with the Leafs, but then as well, the teams are selling and this and that. And it was kind of Pierre's tone, which is a little un-Pierre-esque, and I like it. He was like, the team that probably needs to wake up here is the Calgary Flames. I mean, they're in no man's land. They're not making the playoffs. They don't want to miss out on trading some valuable veterans here. What's if a general manager were to call Craig Conroy today and ask about the availability of Blake Coleman, what kind of feedback do you think he's getting from Connie?
Make an offer, right? And, you know, he would likely speak on what the parameters of that offer need to be so that no one's time is wasted in the process. And to be truthful, I don't know that, you know, anyone outside of the Calgary Flames would know what moves the needle, what gets their interest, you know, reason at this point. And, you know, even though the window is closing between now and the next roster freeze, which is the Olympics on February 4th, you know, and then you've got a 12-day period between the lifting of that roster freeze and the March 6th trade deadline. I mean, you're still talking about a condensed period. So if you're Craig Conroy and you've got teams and off top of my head, I think Pierre was connecting Calgary and Montreal, was he not? And the interest that maybe the Montreal Canadiens would have in Blake Coleman. If I'm Craig Conroy, I'm like, okay, yeah, just make me an offer. Here's what I feel like I need. So bring a package to me and let's go from there. And then you assess it as a management group and you decide whether or not that offer is good enough to move a piece at this point, or if you think that it's going to get better between now and February 4th, or even better after the freeze lifts prior to the deadline.
Are you concerned that they're going to sit on these assets and not move them? Like, are you concerned that they don't believe they need to rebuild?
No, because it doesn't matter to me one way or another if they rebuild or they don't rebuild. So I'm not concerned. And I'm not being an a-hole. I just look, so many teams are looking for defense, centers, and secondary depth scoring, right? So if we're talking about the three principal assets here, and I'm sure there are other pieces that Conroy has to be willing to talk about. You're talking about Rasmus Andersson. What does that deal look like? You know, are you dealing on a rental basis? Does it get considerably sweeter if there's an extension? Okay, two different conversations. You're talking about Blake Coleman, who we know is a piece that is or will be in play. What does that deal look like? And then we're talking about Nazem Kadri. And what I talked about on Insider Trading was the openness of Nazem Kadri at this point to go, all right, well, if you bring a top contender to me, and he doesn't have the full trade coverage, but if you bring a contender to me, yeah, I'm 35. You know, my goal now is to try and win a Stanley Cup. You're going to get his attention. But he likes Calgary. He's not asking for a trade. He's not pressuring anybody. So that's the tricky part of being a manager, to be fair. You know, look, go to Vancouver and the Quinn Hughes blockbuster to the Minnesota Wild. You know, Vancouver with Jim Rutherford and Patrick Galvin just made an educated call that the interest and the trade value in Quinn Hughes was not going to get better than the package they got for him at the time they made the deal. Right. So that's why Craig Conroy is paid the big bucks. So if he feels like there's a deal for Blake Coleman from Montreal or another team, or a deal that makes sense on Anderson, or a deal to a top contender for Kadri that makes sense, well, it doesn't matter if we're talking about it in early mid-January or if we're talking about it coming out of the Olympic freeze. He's got to make that call. But given what I know about the market, and again, I go back to Vancouver because of Kiefer Sherwood. You know, Vancouver's a bit confused that there's a level of interest in Sherwood, but the offers aren't as good as they would like or need them to be to make that to make that trade right now. And that probably applies to the players that we're looking at in Calgary as well.
Yeah, if you got 2 months left or whatever it is, are you giving your best offer now?
Parts of it.
Try to get him for a little less?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of ways of looking at that. I mean, are you a cap team? You know, because it does have to be money in, money out, right? So that's where you start. And most of the contending teams are cap teams. Is there value in having that player come in well in advance of the March 6th trade deadline? There is for me. You know, Rhett will tell you, you know, some of these guys have families, and it's not easy to make that transition. You get the call on March 6th. If you have trade protection, hey, Team X would like you. Are you willing to waive? Well, geez, I'd really like to talk to my wife. You know, when was this just reminds me as we're having this conversation. Remind me, is it last year where Tyler Toffoli, or the year before, I think it was, when Tyler Toffoli got traded from San Jose to Winnipeg? right? Oh no, sorry, from New
Montreal,
Jersey.
Montreal, yeah.
New Jersey.
New
to
Jersey,
Winnipeg.
that's right. Yeah.
New Jersey to Winnipeg. He had no trade protection, but there was a point in that trade after the two managers had concluded, they'd agreed on the deal. The deal was going down where Toffoli, he was okay with it, but it didn't sound like his wife loved the idea. The family wasn't entirely in tune with the move to Winnipeg. And there was concern as to whether or not that deal was going to happen, whether it was going to go through. Well, it had to go through. There's zero trade protection, so I guess what I'm doing is emphasizing the point that sometimes it's better off for the player and his circumstance for that trade to happen earlier in the year. But not very often does it coincide with the team that's acquiring you feeling like they're getting a fair value deal. When you're getting the player earlier, normally you've got to step up and overpay to get that player.
Hey, buddies, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.